Live from the glorious city of Melbourne
and live from the USA,
your superstar hosts, Michael Serpell.
I'm going to say we play and win a final.
Sam Menhennet.
The top four.
Like it.
Carlton.
There it is. There it is. I was waiting for it.
This is In the Ballpark.
Hello and welcome to In the Ballpark for episode 2 of the season 2025. Of course, joined alongside by Michael Serpell from San Diego, California. How's the weather there? Is it still nice?
No, it's not, Sammy. Yeah, it's been wet the last couple of days. Yes, it's been a little bit more like what a winter should be. But
okay.
I've been very blessed up until now. As you can see, I'm a little bit sun-kissed, so it's been good to have some nice beach days here in San Diego, despite most of the country, particularly on the East Coast, having a winter. But yes, Sammy, very good to be with you here and very excited for round 1, officially the footy kicking off. 9 games, Sammy. How good.
We really had a tease last week in the opening round. But you've probably got more traditional footy weather than we're going to have for round 1 because it's still warm. Today's 30 degrees as we're recording this. So it's going to be a hot first round of footy. And even Nick Riewoldt has said, should there be plans for water breaks and stuff like this, which is so strange. It's the way climate change is affecting footy now. It's very strange. But yeah, we're going to have a warm couple of first rounds of footy. So wonder who that'll benefit. Probably more the Queensland teams and some of the like, which we'll get into. But opening round, how did you see it? We'll start with the first game. Friday night, of course, it was Hawthorn by 20 points, 11-10, 76 to the Hawthorn Hawks, 14-12, 96. And really in a wet, drizzly, weird game for the first game of 2025, the Hawks prevailed.
Yeah, the Hawks too good in this one. And you could just see the sort of level of focus and even intensity from Sam Mitchell before the game. You could really tell that he came there on a mission. You know, I think a lot of people know Sam Mitchell as someone who is, pretty relaxed. He's very calm and very transparent with the media. And you could just tell that he had really gotten himself into a really focused headspace for this particular game. Not to suggest that the other games he hasn't, but there was just a level of intensity that was really noticeable. And although a lot of the Hawthorn players played it down, with the Hawks starting 0-5 last season, you could tell that this game was more than just your regular hit out, Sam. This was a statement game, and it was a statement win by the Hawks to knock off the team that was in the grand final from the previous year, and for the Hawks to finally get their first win in the first game of a season just shows that, they put a lot of that chatter to bed around, was just that a flash in the pan from the Hawks last season. No, Sydney is a very high caliber team, organisation, and for the Hawks to do what they did in trying circumstances you saw there, and also with the Swans actually finding a bit of momentum in that third term, for the Hawks to do what they did and to, be doing it in their Hollywood style is a real testament to the whole playing group and obviously the coaching staff and obviously Sam Mitchell giving all those high fives in the press box, or should I say the coach's box. Sam clearly showed how much it meant to the coach in particular. But that's some seriously promising signs from the Hawks first up in the season.
And first hit out for Dean Cox's men. And there was some couple dire mistakes late on in the game, and you could see it. Some coaches, and he'll probably get better at hiding some of the reactions, but there was no hiding his face on. I can't remember which player it was, but the kick across the defence in the back line in a wet game, very silly thing to do.
Can't do it, Sam. That's a coach killer.
A couple of stats from the game: Amadi 3 goals, 1. Will Day had 3 straight. Warner, 2 goals, 1 for him. Darcy Moore disposals. Carl Amon leading them with 27. Roberts with 26, and Blakey with 26 now. And quickly on Blakey, he has got a fan club. I don't know if you've seen the lizards in the crowd, but they were unbelievable. So just to describe them, if anyone missed the footy, there are those special, I think they're Australian, outback lizards where they've got the big thrills behind their heads, and props to those guys for doing that. And Nick was absolutely loving them and frothing that up. So beautiful. I want more of this stuff. We've seen the wizard hats last year. I think this really adds to the atmosphere in the crowd, and we're starting to be a bit more creative now than just the standard old scarf and beanie.
It personalizes the game, and it really brings it to the characters and the personalities that we have in our game. So often the media can sometimes, ridicule and criticize, players for having a really openly clashing personality with other players and celebrations, you name it, your Jack Ginnivans and so forth. But to actually see someone dress up as a lizard with all the face paint and everything too. I mean, they would have been perfect down at the pub after that too.
Oh, they would have been having a lovely day. Until the end result, of course.
Of course.
And so we move on to the second game of the opening round at Giants Stadium. And wow, what a finish for the Giants. 52 points in the end, 15-14, 104 to 616, 52. A bit of a shock for the Pies early on, Michael.
Certainly is. I mean, the big thing that we knew coming into this season was Collingwood were the oldest team, I think, ever to put a football, team on the field, which is just crazy when you think about it. But it makes total sense. The Pies are going for that elusive premiership to get ahead of our boys, Sammy, get number 17. They have to do it with not a lot of draft capital, and it means that, they do have champions of the game like Scott Pendlebury and Still Sidebottom and Tom Mitchell later on in the season. But, there are a lot of old players on that list, and you have to say in that 28-degree heat and at Giants Stadium with a rejuvenated Giants list who are truly believing that even though they've been short on a lot of occasions with this particular playing group, that they are fully believing that this is their year to take that final step to get to the grand final and do something special. And you could just tell that all of their skills and their quick ball movement, all of it was on display, Sammy, and they are a frightening prospect for the rest of the competition. And there were so many incredible individual performances, which is going to make, honestly, a lot of other opposition clubs very nervous coming up against this Giants lineup. And you've got to say, after one game, the Pies do look slow. And one in particular player, Sam, we're very surprised that he was cramping up pretty bad.
Yes, Nick Dacos. And if you hadn't heard and seen clips from some of the new footy shows, a certain Kane Corns has already been digging into Nick already, but it's a lot to take out. It's only round one, or opening round. It's one game. Right. I think can't put the knife in yet. Okay, too early. But
way too early.
Definitely a bit of a wake up call though for Collingwood overall. Just how they got steamrolled like that in the second half. Kelly with 36 disposals, Callahan 33. Josh Dacos on 28, Harry Perryman 27, Lockie Whitfield 26, Finn Callahan 2 goals 2 for him. Brown 2 goals 1. He's really starting to really sharpen up. Jones 2 goals 1. And I think there was like a second half stat where Collingwood's entries in the second half they got probably 1 point to something like 20 or 30 entries, which is what Carlton used to do back in the day, and it was so frustrating.
It's what Essendon did last year, Sam.
But painful signs early on. So that was only just a tease to bring us into round one. Now, before we get for that, a couple of things want to mention, and the big elephant in the room was the scoreboard, the score bug, as it's known in the TV world. Now, I don't know which ones you saw, Michael, but there was big complaints about Fox Footy's new scoreboard taking a bit too, and I think the complaints are fine because, it is a bit too big. I think I like what they've done overall with the other parts of the package, and they've made it look really cool. But they've got that bottom part just a bit too big. The thing about it is, I think when the graphics start to distract you from the gameplay and they take over all the screen and it's too much, then it's a problem. You need to have it there so it's okay. And Channel 7's I think looks a lot better in its placement. It's weirdly in the middle, which I'm not sure if I'm happy about. And both of them have been probably maybe more 7, heavily inspired by the NFL, which I've seen. But what did you overall think of the changes from both Fox and 7?
Yeah, well, Sam, I'm glad you brought it up. And I'm also glad that you referenced the NFL as well, because I was grossly disappointed with the Super Bowl's graphics. I mean, obviously I was disappointed with the game, but even before the game had started and any kind of snaps had been taken, the scoreboard was just awkward. It was in the middle and they were trying to be ultra clean with it. But in reality, there was none of that extra kind of detail to sort of emerge when there was a timeout or when there was a touchdown. And I just feel, Sam, across sport, there's this whole feeling of like we have to be one up the other league or one up the other broadcaster or station. And I see this with the AFL with both of these broadcasts, and it's just a desperate plea to be different from not only your own broadcasters and different broadcasters, but yourself from previous years. It's like, do we really need to evolve it that much? I swear, Sam, Channel 10, when they used to be the broadcasters of the AFL, they used to change it maybe every 5 years, and everyone was fine with it. You know, if there was a logo change for the clubs, so be it. I actually kind of liked it, how they would have like sort of the sash across with like part of the name and then a little bit of like the logo. It was fine. It was stylized. The 5-minute warning, well, you know, just about every millennial absolutely loves that because it's nostalgic, it's sentimental, we love it. And it's you don't know what the fuck's happening, but it's, you know, it's one of those things where, every year they're trying to change the scoreboard so much. And now it's actually interfering our experience watching a game of football, and it should never do that. It should just be there to inform you what the score is.
I think you can only reinvent the wheel a few times before the wheel is out of shape.
Right, and falls off.
Yes. So I hope they take on the feedback. But one thing they've definitely taken on the feedback and removed was the woeful Fox Footy rap. And wow, I don't know what they were thinking with that. And I can't blame the players because the players get called into the studio and they tell you what to do, and you just do it as a player because it's in your contract. But it was so outdated, this 80s style or 80s, 90s style rap that just felt like a school project or something that wouldn't even been funny 15 years ago. And it didn't last on social media for so long. I think one of the commentators was getting a bit of slack and it got pulled down pretty quickly. But, wow, not a great start. So Fox has had ups and downs at the moment. But one positive was the revamped Fox Footy theme with Parkway Drive really metaling it up, and it sounded very cool. So, nice to see some changes. But yeah. And then, of course, onto the other realm of TV. If I think, and I've tried to watch a few, but I think it's exhausting trying to keep up with the amount of footy shows that are on television. It is ridiculous. So we've seen the new AFL 360, of course, with Jared Waitley and now, what's his name? Gary Lyon taking over, taking into the seats. And then Footy Classified had a bit of a change up with their lineup on Channel 9. And then Channel 7 have their new revamped agenda setters, which was interesting to see Nick Rewalt and Kane Corns really dice it up a bit. I think it made it interesting. But I guess unless you're a footy nut like us, we'd only put up with this because some of it's just really awful TV, but we still watch it.
And Sam, like just a lot of headlines, you know, and it's sort of one of those things where it's like it's a journalism off as well with like some of the the sort of massive sweeping statements that come out, and then how long they spend on things like Brad Scott getting extended before the season starts, and they've jumped down this rabbit hole. I mean, we jump down a lot of rabbit holes, Sam, but it's in good humor, it's in good faith, and just the way that they blow up and really magnify certain things within the game. It's like you can take it to a certain extent, but then there just becomes a point where it's like, guys, just talk about the footy, talk about the game, the
game itself.
Worry 100%. Less about the politics.
Yes, 100%. Which is ironically what we're talking about is the politics of the game and not the game. But we will move on to the game now. And round 1, 9 games back here in Melbourne. I don't know why it's Christmas Eve, really. It's good to have it back. And we start off with the traditional. We can just forget that other round happened, and the real opening round starts off tonight, Thursday night, 7:30 p.m., Richmond and Carlton from the MCG. Wow. Heading along, it's going to be fantastic, the atmosphere, and the tables have turned. I remember dreading this game a couple of years ago, and this reset and stripped apart Richmond side. They're going to be a bit underprepared, I think, for what's really pressure mounting on the Blues again for another big season. And great to see some of the new debutants across Richmond and the Blues. The Camporelli brothers, Lucas Camporelli, will be playing. No Charlie Curnow. He's out. And, of course, we had Nick Newman injured in the preseason and things like that. I think Elijah Hollins is out as well, and Orazio Fantasia. Orazio. But what do you feel about this first game?
Yeah, it's always hard to sort of predict exactly what's going to happen in these types of games when you're sort of coming off a very short runway from the preseason. But from what we saw, there were two very stark contrasts. Carlton had an unbelievable win against GWS, and then Richmond on the other foot, they got absolutely torched by Collingwood, who then got torched by GWS. So if you read into that, this should be a 150-point win to the Blues. And it might be. Honestly, it might be. If the weather's nice, Sam, we might be up for it. But I completely agree with you. I mean, this game, so many ebbs and flows from where these teams were. There felt like there was a little time there, like the Brock McLean era, where it was pretty close. You didn't really know who was going to win.
McLean, that is a name I haven't heard in a while. Wow.
Yeah, and I remember talking about nostalgia. I remember one year, was it Megan Gale was like up with like the wives of the players from Richmond. She was dating, was it Sean Hansen from? Was he?
I don't know.
Oh man, and I actually think he was one of those players that may have went between both Richmond and Carlton. I could be wrong about that, but I just remember, like, you talk about Taylor Swift in the NFL getting a camera on her every 5 minutes. This was like that, but for this Carlton-Richmond game. So I do remember that, but, you are absolutely right. Now that we're past that premiership, that dynasty winning era for the Tigers, and now they've stripped it all back, blown it all up, whatever kind of superlatives you want to use for a complete destroyation to try and reset before Tasmania come into the league. This is exactly where they are right now, and where Carlton are right now is a team that have publicly stated that they want to finish top 4 this season. They're premiership contenders. They're in the window, Sam. This is a game that you just bank the 4 points, and even if your star players aren't out there, you're still expected to win. So if you're a Carlton fan heading to the MCG tonight, then you should be expecting a big performance, a statement win, and a win that can start your season off on the right note, Sammy boy.
5-goal minimum, I'd say.
Has to be.
Although in saying that, just want to get the win. It is weird how if we won by so many goals, they'll say, oh, no, it's just Richmond. Or it's kind of weird the way the narratives run on that. But we just want a solid win and see how we play some of the new guys. And, want it to be a good game and bank the 4-point true. Exactly right. Okay, Friday night. Wow. And talk about starting off with a bang. Hawthorn and Essendon. I've seen many games over the tenure where these got very ugly. 7:40 p.m. Friday night, MCG. What a way to start a season, Michael.
Oh, Sabby boy. I'm so glad that they moved this game from, a Sunday or a Saturday night at Marvel or, a Saturday afternoon at the G. Don't get me wrong. Saturday afternoon at the G is magical on a good day. I tell you, Sabby boy, you know it.
Yes.
Woo. But this game deserves Friday night lights. The Hollywood Hawks, as they're called, up against the Bombers. We don't know what the Dons are going to be this year. We just don't know. But it's exciting. These are two bitter rivals. The 80s, there were some massive cleanup jobs during that time. Both teams absolutely thumped each other during those grand finals. There was a bloody good close one in there, a little comeback win by the Dons. But, Sammy, we're living in an era where the Happy Hawks are certainly a confident team. They're a young side. They have no fear. And the Dons, they're just trying to find their identity this season. And what an exciting way to, see how these two big Victorian clubs are going to go this season. And, I'm genuinely excited. I'm recording this game. It's going to be 1:40 a.m. when the first bounce is here in California. But I'm keen, Sammy. I'm very, very keen. And just eager to sort of see how these young Bomber players, in particular from my perspective as a Dons fan, actually go. How is Isaac Kako going to go in front of 80,000 fans? How's Nate Caddy going to present up against this new look Hawthorn backline that have all the pieces to be a contending side? And, how's that midfield going to go with a couple of new young players in there for the Dons as well? There's just so many questions, and that's what we love about opening round and in particular round one, Sam, is a lot of these questions get answered. You may not get a good ladder, predictor until maybe round 6 or round 10, but these are the games we love to see at the very start of the season.
I can't wait to see what the crowd's going to be like, because both definitely a lot of optimism, I would say, with Essendon fans and Hawks fans who, well, I don't feel sorry for, because it wasn't that long, but there's poor little 9-year-olds who haven't seen anything. No, I don't feel sorry for them. And you're right. They had to start off Hawthorn, and they want to keep going. I think that's the best start they probably wanted. I think the whole flash in the pan thing, that I reckon that would be the mantra that they're putting through. Everyone's saying we're just a flash in the pan. We need to show that we're going to keep up with it this year, and it's a really good test for them. And so that makes this a really difficult tip. But I'm going to say for me this time round, just because I've had the earlier game, Hawthorn for me.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you with that as much as it pains me to say. I think, the Hawks have proven exactly what you said, Sam. They aren't a flash in the pan. They're a side that's really a complete team, and they've got levers to pull. I mean, they put James Sicily up forward when they needed him to perform, and he kicked goals. And I just feel like they've got a lot more X factors. And they did it before. They did it last season. They clearly showed that they do have the capabilities to match it with the best teams in the comp. To get to a semi-final within a kick of being in a prelim final isn't a mistake. They're clearly well coached. They've got one of the best coaches in the comp, and yeah, they had a lot of detractors, but they also proved why they are such a good side. But as a Bomber supporter, you just want to see some good signs from the Dons. I don't know how high the ceiling is yet for this season, Sam, but this is a great test first up. And, for the Dons last season when we opened and were able to beat the Hawks in the first round, the Hawks might be using this week as a little bit of a reminder that, hey, this is what the Dons did to us last season, and, was a part of our miniature downfall at the start of the season. Let's show them what we're really made of, against a bitter rival. So it'd be fascinating to see how both clubs are selling it internally. But yeah, Hawks for me, but we'll see what the Dons can do. I'm quietly confident we can match it with them for most of the game.
Okay. Saturday afternoon, GMHBA, the recently upgraded GMHBA, take on the Fremantle Dockers, and they've had some scary ones against the Dockers there in years gone by. I think there's been After the Sirens and a few like that. So I like that this classic one is starting their season off at GMHBA, which I need to get down to, I think, since it's been upgraded. But wow, Geelong. Now, we mentioned last week in your prediction, top for Geelong. We're going to see the likes of Bailey Smith be thrown into the midfield and a couple of the changes there. So a new look, old look Geelong, don't really know. And then our risers this year, Fremantle. Are they going to show us what they've been brewing for a couple of years, what they've just been kept out of? So I think this is a cracker to start off Saturday afternoon with. 120 GMHBA. Where do you sit on this one?
Oh, Sam, as you were saying, they're both really wanting to finish high in the top 8 this season. Both of these clubs, I mean, they've made it very clear that that's their ambition. And as I said in my predictions, Geelong were a kick or so away from being in another grand final and possibly winning it again, seeing how poorly Sydney played in it. So Geelong would have had a really bitter taste in their mouth all throughout the preseason, knowing just how close they got, just how well they played in that final series. And Fremantle, wow. I mean, gosh, I think our expectations have been so high for them over this off-season, particularly with the pickup of Shai Bolton. I mean, what does he do for that midfield? How dynamic he could be in their forward line. I mean, at his absolute best, he was one of Richmond's absolute best players in some of those grand finals and those, incredible final series that they had. Almost a Dustin Martin 2.0, obviously with a very different frame, but wow. I mean, with his addition, and if they can really get going in those other parts of the ground where we've had question marks about them before, I think they can be a serious threat. And as you said, Sam, they do not fear GMHBA Stadium. Weirdly enough, it's a bit of a bogey ground for Geelong when they play against Fremantle. So it wouldn't surprise me if Fremantle get up in this game, but I am going to tip Geelong just at home with a couple of good-looking players in Basalenka. And my word, Geelong fans are going to sell that place out. You just know they are. But Sammy, wouldn't surprise me if the purple haze travels all the way to Geelong. Oh, yeah.
Yes, Geelong for me. Too strong at home. Following on, the grand final rematch, Sydney Swans and the Brisbane Lions from the SCG at 4:15 in the afternoon. Nice twilight fixture for a rematch. Another hit out for the Swans that will probably want to rectify themselves a bit after a shaky first game. And then Lions, probably under a bit prepared, been stuck in a cyclone. Haven't been able to train as much, seriously.
True. Yeah.
So
I thought that was a metaphor, but you're right.
And Sydney being swalloped like they did. Is that a word? Probably not. But it felt like what happened to them during that grand final last year. So I think they'll want to rectify themselves and come out stronger at a home game against Lions that will need to bring their bathers and towels with them.
You said it, Sammy.
Really bad.
My gosh. You said it. I mean, how many cyclone references can we throw into this chat? I mean, my gosh, it's pretty wild what's happened, obviously, and you just think back to that grand final day, and you just think, wow, the Swans were just having such a dream run, not only throughout the whole season, but into the final series as well. That comeback against GWS was phenomenal. They absolutely blew Port Adelaide out of the water, and you just thought it's going to be the Swans by how much here, just how hard Brisbane had to fight to stay in that final series, playing every single final in the final series. And then the Swans serve up that, Sammy. My gosh. But Sammy, quick controversial opinion from me. It might not actually be this controversial. It might be the general populace opinion, but Sammy, we cannot have the unveiling of the flag this early on in a season. We got to tease this game out. Yes, I know the grand final was a fizzer, but we need to get a better understanding of where these clubs are in the season, and we need to tease it out. You know, you think about blockbuster games, You've got to have a grand final rematch, maybe round 9, round 10. Sammy, remember how good
Midway,
St Kilda and Geelong was in 2009 when they played? Oh, my gosh, it was a blockbuster. It was brilliant. It was even on a Sunday twilight and it was good. It's just this game does deserve a better time slot. But regardless of that, Sammy, Brisbane, where are they playing? Is this at home for them?
SCG.
SCG, okay. I'm still going to tip Brisbane, but I think, the Swans will want to respond after that. And hell, Coxie hasn't won a game yet as the head coach. So, hopefully there'll be a bit more fire in the belly from the Swans and hopefully wanting to rectify the grand final, right, Sammy?
Yep, I'm going to take Swans at home. Next to Saturday night, 7:35 at Marvel Stadium, Western Bulldogs and North Melbourne. And suddenly this one is now an interesting tale, which probably we wouldn't have really thought of this too much before pre-season happened, and the amount of injuries and crises that are happening over in the kennel. But really good chance to hit out for North Melbourne. They've been really wanting to improve the last couple of years. They've had some good trades coming in the off-season. Caleb Daniels slots into them against his old side. We've got Luke Parker from Sydney. So it's a couple of new changes to the Roos that will see them Jack Darling, yes. I almost forgot about him.
So did I.
Well, he's thrown me off here with the Darling.
I know, naturally. The broad shoulders got you, Sammy.
Yeah, the Kangaroos, hopping. What do you think? Big chance for him.
Yeah, I mean, we both had the Bulldogs kind of in the lower parts of our ladder. I'm not sure about you, Sammy. You may have had them a bit higher than me, but I had them as a bit of a slider this season. And if it's true with my prediction, I think, yes, this is going to be a hard game for them to win. And I think for North Melbourne, just excitement all round. Their young players have another year to prove to the fan base, to prove to themselves that they're genuine AFL players and that this club is going on the right path. And I think they've got a lot more pieces this year, particularly with some of that experience that you mentioned, Sammy Boy, that they've got an opportunity here to really make a statement. And if you'd remember last season, I think it was in Clarko's first season coaching them, they had a couple of surprise wins, including one against Fremantle. So you'd never know with North Melbourne. And it being at Marvel Stadium, they've got every chance. And hey, you just never know. And the Dogs are missing a lot of cavalry. But at the same time, for the Dogs, they'll be selling this as a good opportunity to really blood some of their youngsters and prove that they're still a team that's competing, Sam.
Yep.
But in saying that, I think I'm going to go with the upset here.
I'm going to go the upset too. Wow. What a start that would be for Kangaroos fans, because my mate, he hasn't been to many games in the recent years, but he's like, I'm going to go to this one. Do you want to come? Because there's a little sniff. So I'm expecting a good crowd. And then they've had some horrors over the years with the Good Friday game. There's drastic score lines. So I think Kangaroos want a bit of revenge in that sense. The other game on Saturday night, Collingwood versus Port Adelaide over at the MCG. Wow, another big one to throw off for the first weekend. And what's going to be a strange year for Port fans as they say goodbye to Ken Hinkley in his goodbye year, really. And the Pies. After that first game we mentioned earlier against the Giants, they have some work to do. I'm really lost at this one because I still don't know what Port are going to bring.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Sam. This game last year was an absolute fizzer. Port Adelaide just did not show up to play at the MCG. I don't know if it was 60 or 70 points in the way of the Pies, but I mean, Port finished really high last season and they have won on the G before, but this is a real statement opportunity for the Power to just show that, they're heading in the right direction with the coaching changeover. And I mean, I just hope that Ken coaches to his absolute best. And when I say that, I mean, the best of Ken Hinkley is ultra emotional. It's hard on your sleeve kind of stuff. It's showing passion after a win, maybe not remonstrating with players and telling them, hey, you shouldn't have went too early on certain predictions. But, I love the theatre, Sammy. I love it. And there have been times he's been borderline. Don't get me wrong. He's been close to crossing the line, but I love it. He's so passionate. He's such a lovable coach. And yeah, Port have one opportunity this season to send him off in the right possible way. And what better way to send him off than winning a flag? And so, if they want to win it, they've got to win this game, Sammy. Bottom line, they've got to win this game at the G. So, as you said, I'm really fascinated to see how this one plays. And as you said, the Pies, they've got a lot to prove too. So, but they're going to get a big crowd there, I'm sure, the Pies, first home game of the season. So, I'm going to tip the Pies in this one, Sammy, but not with a lot of confidence, to be honest, because this is a big opportunity for Port to prove something.
I think I might go the upset. I know it'll be the first big home game for the Pies and they'll get a big crowd, but I think you're right. I think those Port players will know this is really one real big hit for them. And to get a win early at the MCG against a big club would be a big statement for them. Sunday afternoon, we move on to now 12:35. It's the Adelaide Crows taking on the Saints at Adelaide Oval. And another interesting one here. Adelaide have been weirdly placed in the last couple of years. I predicted them to kind of go up, but they haven't really moved from where they've been in the last couple of years. They've sat pretty still, and they probably want a bit of movement and a bit of a better year this year. And then on the other hand, St Kilda. We both said that I've said that they're going to maybe slide down towards the bottom. So it's going to be tricky start for them. But I could see this being an ugly game for the Saints, and Adelaide will probably have a couple of goals, three or four goal win.
Yeah, I think I'll keep it pretty simple, Sam. I just think with all of the Saints injuries, I mean, we all know Ross Lyon's a genius and he pulls so many different levers and he is an ultra-conservative coach when he needs to be with his defense, but then he's also been able to, really restrict some of the competition's best players through the art of coaching. And you can only pull so many levers and find so many young players. But if you've got major holes in your list and the lack of A graders are there, particularly running through the midfield. I mean, we talked about Finn Callaghan before and you just saw the class and the polish and just the beauty that player possesses and how much money the Saints threw at that. Yet, despite him possibly being the highest paid player in the competition, he said no to that particular contract. So St Kilda being a destination club, it's a tough sell. But we know Saints fans, they're passionate, they're deprived, they want to see something this season. They'll be believing just as much as any other club that they're in the mix. So what a great opportunity for this club to show something, Sammy, because Adelaide, as you said, have not been good the last couple of years. Everyone thought they were going to have their meteoric rise last season, just missing out on the 8. Everyone thought it was going to happen. The Crows, another season for their veteran players like Taylor Walker. What's their forward line going to look like? The expectation of Darcy Fogarty, does he take another step? Their midfield, their forward line. There's just so many questions for the Crows. So both of these teams have huge question marks, Sammy. It's going to be a fascinating game, but I have to agree with you. I think Adelaide at home, slightly too strong, but Saints, come on, show us something. Prove us wrong.
The Demons take on the Giants at the MCG. I think this one's really interesting. I don't know where the Demons sit. Many say they could be sliding back down. Petrarca, with his big injury last year, he'll want to come out. I know he's been really working hard. He's done that thing where he's gone over to, I think it's Abu Dhabi, and done some special training before pre-season. So he's going to be a scary look this season. And then Clayton Oliver, he's been my cheap super coach pick. Could he really bring out? I know he had a tough year last year with the mental health and all that thing, so he'll want a better season. And I sure hope the Demons overall will want better spot, because the bow out of the finals like they have in the last couple of years, the window's closing, I would say, for them. I don't know. Is that too big of a call?
I think so, Sam. And, the other thing that we've got to consider, ironically, as a Dons fan, we know this pretty intrinsically, is that we traded away our highest pick at last year's draft, and the D's got that pick to move up the draft for last season, and we've got their future first-round draft pick, which essentially means wherever Melbourne finish up, we get that first pick. So if the D's finish pretty low this season, the Dons get a pretty high pick. So is that a little incentive for the D's to acknowledging that, yes, maybe the window is just starting to slip? Do we play a little bit better? I mean, a team like the Demons should not have any other incentives other than we want to win another premiership, because we know how good they are.
Yeah.
But that little extra bit of motivation by the fact that if they finish low, they have to give one of their picks to Essendon that's pretty high. They wouldn't want to be doing that, and it's a big gamble to make. So, as you said, a lot of question marks, obviously, over culturally how much they've improved from the off-season. And also Christian Petrarca training in Abu Dhabi. I'd love to see how you can bounce a ball in the sand. I always seem to struggle with it, though. But look, for me, Sammy, I think I'm going to tip the Giants in this one. I mean, that was a scary performance that they put up. And I think as good as Melbourne's defense is, Melbourne in recent times have really struggled to move the ball. So the Giants did that with such great ease over the weekend, and we know how defensively good and sound the Ds are, but I do worry about their forward line, whether they'll get enough goals from Van Rooyen and potentially Max Gawn up there. They're going to have a lot of contributors in the midfield kicking those goals as well, and that's potentially where Oliver and Petrarca can pop up, but I am tipping the Giants in this one. They are hot.
Yep, Giants for me too. Pressure on the Ds, though. It's going to be interesting. Going to be interesting. And the final game of round one, 6:10, the classic time slot for Optus Stadium in Perth, the West Coast Eagles and the Gold Coast Suns, the rebranded Gold Coast Suns. Now, we didn't get a chance to talk about their jumper yet. I know that. Oh, I'm still harping on about that. It's awful. It's awful.
What the fuck, Sammy? Seriously, I'm sorry to blow off on this one, but look, I've been involved in rebranding processes before,
yes.
And I love the identity of it. I mean, the fact that someone pointed out to me recently that the G and the C, Gold Coast, in their logo looks like a football, and when you look closely, it's like, oh shit, it's a football.
It's also a sun over the beach water, which is cool. When they use it over the gradient. But when you put it on a jumper and you put it on as the same color as the bottom of the jumper, what?
It loses all of its meaning.
I know. It's
I actually thought it was a trading
silly.
jumper when I first saw it. I honestly thought it was a trading jumper when I first saw it. I'm just like, just change it yellow so we could see your logo. It's a sun. And no, I don't understand the incognito kind of red on red, Sam. I think it's
I know
appalling.
they're trying something different, and we might see GWS's pink jumper later on in the year. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have seen that, but also the Gold Coast have a pink jumper as well.
Oh, they do? Okay,
they do.
Well, there you go.
They do.
Anyway,
imagine if they play pink on pink.
But yeah, wow.
The expansion cup.
Yeah. Wow. But the more important thing about the Suns is, are they ever going to play finals? Second year for Damien Hardwick. Is this the year that they can get things together and really have a crack at it? A good test for and the Eagles. Oh, tough couple of years for them. Don't know where I sit with them. They've made a couple of changes too. Getting in small forward Owies and a few things like that. Yeah, painful. So I'm not sure this game. Can the Eagles come out? They're the biggest club in the western half of Australia. Still like one of the biggest fan clubs in Australia, along with, the top Melbourne clubs. They've got to show that crowd and that side of, Perth they're not forgotten about. And especially with their big purple neighbours starting to make a noise. What are they going to show for us this season, Michael?
It's a great question, Sam. I really do like their acquisitions. There's a little bit of the Richmond-esque kind of caliber in that club now, with obviously Andrew McWalter as the head coach, and then you've got Graham there. You've got the little Baltic superstar from Richmond, the running gun, the hard head. Help me out, Sammy, with his name. Oh, I love him. Liam Baker. I just love that player. He just seems to carry teams, with his hardness and just his inspirational going at the ball. So I like those acquisitions. I don't think it's going to necessarily dramatically change their fortunes from a 3-4 game winning club a year to, a 10-game winning club a year, but they should have some natural improvement with, just a couple of new fresh faces, obviously a new coaching voice, and they'll surprise a few teams this year, no doubt, and they'll be a harder team to play in Western Australia. In saying all of that, the Gold Coast Suns, I mean, they want for nothing, Sam. They are a club that's absolutely stacked with talent. They've got Damien Hardwick there. I mean, are they missing anything, Sam?
Oh, I don't know. Some fans? No, that's too mean. No, sorry. I couldn't resist the job.
That's a good point. A good point. I thought you were going to say a yellow logo.
And I'd assume their training schedule would have been messed around too. I don't know if you've seen the beach at Gold Coast. Oh, my God. It's like a cliff's edge. The water's right up to the city. It looks like one of those disaster movies. So Metrocon's probably a big floating pool at the moment. So, but besides that, they want to be playing finals. They've really with this, rebrand. They've really invested into this team, and getting Damien Hardwick. I think they could play finals this year. I don't think that's too much of a stretch to say that with how even the competition is, and there's many teams that can place into it. So they really want to be making a statement start, and I think they will nab the Eagles at Optus away to start off with.
I agree with you, Sammy, and I think they're going to win a lot of games, obviously, in Darwin when they play those special games during, the Indigenous period of time where we acknowledge some of the great Indigenous players of our sport. And, the Suns have some incredible Indigenous players. How could I possibly forget Daniel Rioli as well? Came across from Richmond as well in the off-season, so he's going to be a dashing defender for them and a real, hopefully fire starter for them when it comes to their defense to offense transition. So, they've added some good acquisitions in. Clearly, Damien Hardwick has been to the promised land before. Obviously, it's going to be a very hard road trip for most clubs in the competition to compete in those really dewy, humid conditions there at Metricon Stadium. And it's just about really, can they win those games in Melbourne? I mean, they should win most of their games in the West when they do play there, if they play the Eagles. But it's really those games in Melbourne. So I don't think we're going to get a lot out of this game other than, are the Eagles a bit better than last season? And are the Suns for real? Can they really make a statement here? So Suns for me in this one. But yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit closer than what we think.
Wow, that's round one, and I cannot wait for it to start. We've waited so long for footy. Footy season's back. Best time of year. You can hear it all, of course, on In the Ballpark. We'll be here with throughout the season, and we'll try and get lots of content going out. We've had a new bit of a change up with our setup here. So video content as well. And then, of course, Jimmy Worth, who's a bit of an absentee for twice in a row, so he needs to get his head in the game. Get back here with us. Just in time for the Dons to disappoint him again.
Baggies went early, Sammy boy.
I have a feeling it's going to be back and forward this year. So I can't wait to get into it and discuss it all with you from across the land and the sea, from San Diego to Melbourne. This has been In the Ballpark.
For all your news, reviews, and previews this AFL season,
Listen to In the Ballpark. Download the podcast now.